Today, there's more fallout from the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Capitol Police are responding now to that scathing Senate report out earlier this week revealing their failure in crafting a security plan. Meanwhile, the FBI director is facing tough questions today from lawmakers about how the FBI treats domestic terror threats in the wake of that attack. Listen to what Judiciary Committee Chairman Democrat Jerry Nadler of New York had to say.
For too long, the FBI has downplayed the threat of white nationalism, focusing instead on far more distant threats and occasionally on imaginary threats like black identity extremism. And although the FBI no longer uses that particular term, I'm just as disturbed by the Bureau's current practice of lumping together a wide range of activities under the term racially motivated violent extremism, as if there were any equivalence whatsoever between black and brown activists marching for justice and the right-wing extremists who attacked the Capitol Police and tried to hang Mike Pence.
So it's a question of priorities and of what happened. And joining us now to discuss all of this, Elizabeth Neumann, ABC News contributor and former official at the Department of Homeland Security under the Trump administration. Elizabeth, first, I want to get your reaction to what Congressman Nadler just said there. He's urging FBI Director Wray to do a review of white supremacist membership within the Bureau itself, as the DHS and the Pentagon have done. Do you think that's necessary?
Hi, Terry. You know, it's not a bad idea. My thought, though, is that Wray might be holding off and waiting for the Attorney General to do something similar department-wide. We have seen evidence, especially out of January 6th, that we do have a lot of law enforcement and active duty military that participated in some aspects of the insurrection, people that have been indicted. So there is no doubt that there is a problem. Nobody can quite pinpoint how big of a problem it is, but I think looking inward is always a good place to start so that we can make sure that the people can trust their government. That's a good place to start when you're talking about law enforcement.
And the law enforcement has had a problem in many parts of the country being infiltrated by white supremacists. And, federal law enforcement may have to take a look as well. Now, as far as the aftermath of January 6th and the prosecutions, FBI Director Wray was as forceful as we've ever seen him, saying all protesters get equal treatment. Take a listen to this.
We have one standard. And I don't care whether you're upset at our criminal justice system or whether you're upset at our elections. There's a right way and a wrong way in this country to do it under the First Amendment, and committing violence, assaulting federal law enforcement, and destroying property is not the way to do it, and that's my standard for the FBI.
So what do we know about where those prosecutions and ongoing investigations stemming from the Capitol riot, the insurrection, stand? Where do they stand, and whether former President Donald Trump is under investigation at all? That's something several Democrats are asking about.
Yeah, that was a really powerful statement that he made. I'm so glad that he did that. Often, and you saw this on display today, the FBI tries to be very apolitical, answer the question, or kind of defer because it's under investigation. It was important for the nation's most preeminent law enforcement organization to come out and say, like, we apply the law equally. And just because we as security officials rack and stack the greatest threats, the fact that violent white supremacy and violent anti-government extremism is the greatest threat posed against our country does not mean that we don't apply the law to other threats, which is one of the talking points that you've heard out of some on the right. And likewise, you heard in Chairman Nadler some criticism that they're not taking the threat seriously. I was at DHS when I worked with the Bureau. I think we all recognized that we didn't fully understand how the threat was morphing as it was happening. There are some very good questions to be asked to go deeper and understand how we could have done that better, how we could have prevented January 6th. But I don't think it is a simplistic answer as they're all a bunch of white supremacists in law enforcement, or they only cared about ISIS. Most of the men and women I know in law enforcement passionately love their country and are devastated when any sort of attack happens. I think that the answers tend to be much more complex and nuanced, and that's why we really need an independent commission. I'm not sure we're going to get answers out of a hearing like this. But as to investigations, I mean, Wray kept talking about they have over 500 investigations underway right now. lots of pending charges. There were questions about whether or not they were investigating Trump or people around Trump. He did not answer that question, kept citing how the judges and the prosecutors were very strict about not talking about the investigations while they were underway. Kind of raises some eyebrows. Maybe there actually are some interesting investigations underway that we find out later when charges are brought.
We will, and that's a great point you make, Elizabeth, about the morphing nature of the threat, the rapidly metastasizing threat in our country from extremists on the right. And so the other big question today, what were the intelligence failures that led to the insurrection? Do you think those are being addressed?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in some of Wray's answers. He was very focused on the investigation, completely appropriate, makes sense why he is. But there were no doubt failures. It is DHS and FBI's job to warn the public. We know from the Senate report, they did a great job documenting the needles in the haystack, if you will, which weren't that buried. Many of us on the outside could see that violence was very likely, but you didn't see the appropriate level of attention and warning that DHS and FBI traditionally bring to a situation like what was happening on January 6th. Why was that? It could be a number of reasons. We really need to get to some answers. And I don't know, maybe they have some other internal reviews underway and he's not ready to talk about it. But I was disappointed to not hear more from Wray about how they're going to make sure they don't miss this again.
It is a rapidly evolving threat environment. And in the FBI and others really do have to get after it. Elizabeth Neumann, thanks very much for your insight on that.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.